Okay. Uh, so today, let's discuss about some basic model. Like, let's talk about US. Let's say we are doing a forecasting for a drug which is being used for COPD in the US. Um and let's try to understand how we can prepare a basic model. So, firstly, uh, let's assume we are gonna do pharma forecasting for an asset, X asset. Okay. Let's say Novartis is the manufacturer. So now we need to understand for Novartis, if we are gonna forecast for a single asset, right? Uh, uh, Single molecule or single MOA, how to do that. For example, for COPD, let's say firstly, of course, we will need the total population of the US. I've taken a rough number here. Okay, so first let's segment this population into two categories, which is pediatric and adult, right? So let's assume pediatric population is somewhat around 20% of this number. Okay, so then adult population will be this number, total population minus pediatric, right? um, and if we will total this, right, this should be is equal to this, that is true. So let's assume now the population is growing at a rate of 0.5%. Again, I'm taking a rough estimate here. It can be 1%, it can be uh, so basically it's around 0.5 to 1%, here I'm using alt HOI, just to adjust these cells, or you can also use this shortcut key. Okay, so now similarly for the adult population, let's assume this population is also gonna grow at, you can either just subtract it. Okay, for that what we will be needing is this number. We need to lock it by pressing function F4, right? And this number we need to uh, do it in a moving direction, which is right. Alt HOI, right? Let's see, yeah, formula is correct. So this will be our total population, but this way, this is not the ideal way. You see, this way the pediatric population is growing, right? But this number is decreasing at the simultaneously. So now what we will be doing is, to do that, we can simply put the same formula here. we, we need to check at what rate adult population is growing, right? So with this, if you'll see that at first the population was is 2 power 6 32 million, sorry, 330 million, and it is, but 2032 it will be 347 million. So this is a simple population segment. Now after population, if you remember our last video, after population we have prevalence rate, and you know why we are not taking incidence here. If you are not sure about it, please do watch the latest video, last video I would say, because there I have given in detail why we will be considering prevalence rate here. So let's say prevalence rate in percentage for pediatric population. Okay. Similarly, we will be checking prevalence rate for the adult population. So here I'm focusing more on the Excel based forecasting part. I'm not focusing on the secondary part. We will do that later. So let's first understand how we can prepare a basic model so that whenever there is any assignment, you can work on it, or you can use the same similar type of model. So let's assume the US the prevalence rate for pediatric among pediatric for COPD is around 6.5%, and similarly it is for around 8% for the adult. Again, this will vary, this can change along the years. It Having said that, this will not be constant. Of course it will be uh, changing with years. So now here I'm considering the same for the simplicity sake. So let's say this is the prevalence rate, right? So now after prevalence we have the diagnosis rate. So before prevalence, before diagnosis rate, either before diagnosis rate you can do the calculation, or after diagnosis rate you can do the calculation. So let's say what you will have to do here is, so this population uh, multiply prevalence rate. So you will get your prevalent population for both pediatric and adult. Prevalent population pediatric, similarly prevalent population adult. So that will be 6.5% multiply this number, similarly this number multiply this number. So we will just stretch it, alt HOI, and this is our number. You can, it's always good to do sanity check after every calculation. So this is like my way of doing it. Is I um What I do is, after doing every calculation I just simply click on the sum option, because I need to check if this number, so ideally this number should be okay, forget it. Okay, let's move to the diagnosis rate. Okay, so countries like US will have uh, somewhere around 70 to 100% diagnosis rate. This is what I have observed working on multiple therapy areas. But for COPD, since it's a very old disease, it's not something that was discovered in recent years. So COPD, let's consider 100% is the diagnosis rate, or you can consider 90% also. So let's say 100% is the diagnosis rate, right, for both population. So it can vary. Okay, so then we have diagnosed prevalent population, similarly diagnosed prevalent population for pediatric and population for adult. So that will be 100%, or let's assume 90% here, just to see variation in the number. Okay, so it will be 90% multiply this number, which is our prevalent population, similarly this into this. Now we will just so this multiply this multiply this. Okay, so this is what sanity check I was talking about, which we can just do that after every step, right? So now after diagnosed population or diagnosis rate, right, we have if you remember our last video, we will be segmenting the disease. So let's say for simplicity's sake, there are patients who will be having mild COPD cases, there will be moderate COPD cases, and there will be severe COPD cases, right? So for each cases, the population will be different, right? Let's say 70% of the US population are having mild COPD cases, 20% severe, and 10% 20% moderate, and 10% is severe. So this is the rough estimate. Again, this is the you can say severity of the disease, this step, right? Let me do one thing. Okay, let's do it later. Okay, severity of the disease. So after severity of the disease, right, let's say you are not working on one asset, let's say you are working on multiple asset. So there is possibility that you are working on five different types of assets. Let's say few assets fall under, few drugs are used for mild COPD cases, other few drugs are used for moderate COPD cases, and the other ones are used for severe COPD cases. So you can't calculate on a single sheet for each disease or for each type, right? So what you will be doing here is you can do data validation here. Okay, just simply click on this. Okay, list source will be this, and enter, and then press OK. So here you can simply select mild, moderate, severe. So after this, what I will be doing is just give me a second. Okay. One so I'm just gonna apply VLOOKUP. For that I'm just adding reference numbering. Okay, so for severe, let's say VLOOKUP, lookup value is this severe function f4. We will close this, we will lock this value, table array is this, right? We will again lock this comma column index number. So this one is starting from this, right? Function f4, we will have to press it two times because we want the cells to move from left to right, so that's why two times. So then range, you can either type 0 or you can say exact match, and you can simply do this. So after this you just need to click on the percentage option because our above values are in percentage, and just copy paste. So now why this is because this by doing this you have just automated your model. So if you will select mild here, the numbers will automatically change. So numbers, if you in case if you want to do calculation for drugs which are used for moderate cases, you don't have to you know uh, do it manually, right? So this way your model is somewhat automated. So let's say the drug X drug for Novartis for which you were gonna forecast, right? So let's say that's not being used for mild or moderate, that's being used for severe cases only, right? So severe cases are 10% of the cases, right? So your target population will be severe COPD population. So that will be is equal to this multiply your diagnosed population, right? So your total diagnosed population is okay. So this is your total diagnosed population. So from the total diagnosed population you have to multiply your total diagnosed population with severe cases, right? So this is your number on which you are gonna do further calculations, right? So after this severity of the disease, we have, if you remember our previous discussion, we have treatment rate after this. So in the treatment rate, so let's say the treatment rate is around again 90%. I'm assuming again you have to do secondary research or systemic literature review for this. So after treatment rate, we will simply multiply our severe COPD cases with the treatment rate, so we'll have the treated population, total treated population, right? Population, again this is an estimated number. So after treated population, so let's say now for each drug, right, so whosoever has done pharmacy, so they know there are different drug classes, right? um, so COPD drug classification, if you will search, uh, 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 okay, yeah, I will just copy this image and paste it here. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, so just understand, there are different classes, right? Under each class there are different drugs with different brand names, right? So let's say the drug for which you are forecasting, that is X drug, right? So that X drug is, firstly, let's assume this is a biologic. Just take an example. Okay, so now under biologic there will be different class. Biologics will be having different classes. Then under biologics there will be different drugs, right? So let's say we are talking about long acting beta 2 agonist, right? So in the long acting beta 2 agonist there are four drugs which I can see as of now. So these long acting beta 2 agonist, right, first you need to from among all those classes, right, among all those classes you need to see what will be the share of your drugs class, that is long acting beta agonist. So let's say there are 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, there are 9 different classes, and the share of long acting beta 2 agonist is around 20%. That 20% is what the share of labas, right? So that is long acting beta 2 agonist. Under laba, let's say you are forecasting for the first drug, or any, take any drug, let's say you are doing forecasting for the first drug. Under this class having 20% share, the estimated share which you have taken from different sources, either from primary market research, or you have used IQVIA Midas tool, or IQVIA Midas database, right? Or you have done some collaborations, or your client itself has given you this number or the percentage. So it can be anything. We will discuss about this in detail though. So let's assume you are the class share, or in class share of your drug is 45%. So simply you need here class share, in class share, and then uh, brand X share, right? So let's say the class share is 20%, this is 45%, right? Brand X share, right? So this brand, the share of your brand, right, this will come from the analog analysis, which we will be discussing in detail, of course. So this will come from the analog analysis. So brand X share, let's assume here somewhat so let me just give a brief here, how brand X share comes. Okay. uh, 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 okay, this is the simplest curve I could find. Okay, so brand X share, from where it actually comes is, so whenever a new drugs comes into the market, let's say, um, oh god, why this image looks like this? Okay. Okay, so now whenever there is a new drug entering into the market, or let's say, the primary completion date of a drug from the clinical trials .gov. Now from clinical trials.gov, the pivotal trials results are out, right? So within a year, right, within a year, or within 1 to 1.5 years, the drug is gonna get launched in the market, right? So now you need to analyze the drugs, let's say, what will be the share of the initial share of the drug in the market when it's getting launched. Of course, it will not be 100%, because there will be a few other drugs in the market which will be grabbing those shares, right? So this share, uh, just okay. So initially, the drug will grab some percentage, right? Let's say 5% share it has grabbed, or 10% share it has grabbed, right? Um, so the sh the product share of that drug will increase gradually until it reaches the maturity phase, right? So in pharma forecasting, this is the most, I would say, important skill, or the part while doing forecasting, because anyone can scrape the data, anyone can do these basic calculations, but the most important part is to calculate the share of your brand or your drug. So how do we do that is either through analog analysis. You will be checking the product profiles of those drugs which are having same number of competitors or similar therapy. How you can do that, there are different sources like IQVIA, Midas is there, NDTI is there, or you can do market research. You just have to analyze what will be the average adoption time of that drug by physicians, because as the number of prescriptions increases, the sales of your drug will increase definitely. Then when other way is again through market research only, but you have to check when this drug will be available in formulary. You know about drug formularies, right? There are different drug formularies by US FDA. Just go through that. Then third step is you can do attribute analysis. Again, I love working on attribute analysis models. So basically what you do with attribute analysis is you just take out the drugs from tct.gov, let's say high priority drugs. You compare the efficacy and safety data and the other parameters like bioavailability and other parameters like pricing, and you benchmark it with the similar drug which is already there in the market. So there are different ways to calculate the brand share of your drug, but here let's focus on the simpler one only. Let's say initially your drug, right, grabbed 3% or 3% share in the market when it was launched. At this time, initially the share was 3%. If the drug was good, took it increased to 8% the next year, then to 10% in the next year, and then slowly it increased 15%. It took 20%, and then let's say 25%. So 25% was the max share, like this one. So after 25%, the drug share gradually started decreasing. Okay. It could be because of multiple reasons. There is new drug which is entering into the market, or there is um, uh, patent laws, there is uh, you know new data available. For example, let's say the drug, after a few years after conducting post-market surveillance, there are few safety concerns, any reason the drugs sales started decreasing. So let's say this is the sales or the brand share of the drug, right? So what you will be doing is, you need to check how many patients will be using your brand, right? So you have your treatment rate, treated population. Okay, so this you will merge uh, at the end. So basically I'm highlighting this part in green. Okay, you don't need to worry much about it, because I next video I will be focusing on this only, because I can't compile it here. So let's focus on the simpler calculations only. So you need to check how many patients on your brand, right? First you will be taking 3% of this and your treated population. So you see, now you started with 330 million population, right? Now you are at 62k. Only 62,000 out of 330 million population, or only around 60k will be using your brand. um, so this is your ideal targeted population, but again this is not the actual volume of the patients. There are different conversion parameters, right? Compliance rate is there, access rate is there, healthcare economic outcome research, there are different cuts. So let's assume compliance rate is 85% to this drug, or let's say this is 70%. So the compliance rate multiply patients on your brand, then you just simply do this calculation. So this is your volume, actual volume. So now let's say duration of therapy for this one is 12, right? Just for simpler calculations I'm doing, duration of therapy is 12. So now actual volume will be this multiply this, then after this no, after this you will be having price cut. Before that there are different cuts, but we are doing simple calculation. Let's say $34, sorry, 34, 34. Okay, so show your total revenue is what? Price into volume, this into this. Oh god. Okay, this is 34. So this is your revenue in million. It will be this number divided by 10 raised to power 6. So that is around 17 million. So you see, your that out of the patients, total number of patients, this is your revenue of your drug. Of course this is not in detail, and we will be discussing in detail. Firstly, I think we should focus on this part, because this is very important, and if you will be able to answer these questions related to these in the interview, definitely you are gonna crack any interview. So thank you so much.